we can get out of here. Yukon's playing Edmond North tonight.
Good evening.
Basketball.
I'd like to call the February 7th, 2017 meeting of the Yukon City Council to order at this time. If you would rise, Pastor Tim Bear will give us the invocation from Grace Church and remain standing for the flag salute, please.
All right. Well, let us pray. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, we ask your presence with us tonight, with our city, our leaders, and our citizens. We ask that you would send upon those who hold office in the city a spirit of wisdom, of charity, of justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve to promote the well-being of all our citizens. Please bless tonight's council meeting, bless the deliberations and decisions to be made, and give our council foresight and courage to faithfully carry out their duties. May your will and your grace guide us in all we do tonight and in the week to come. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Alberts.
Here.
McCarran.
Here.
Russell.
Here.
Smystrela.
Here.
Yonda.
Here.
We have presentations and proclamations this evening. Is someone here as a representative for the Children's Dental Health Month? I'm going to go ahead and read. There's a proclamation. It says, whereas the future is to a large measure depends on the good health of our children and youth and the citizens of tomorrow, and whereas good health, physical and mental, can be achieved through good health habits learned early. Now, therefore, I, John Alberts, Mayor of Yukon, Oklahoma, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2017 as Children's Dental Month in the city of Yukon, and urge all citizens and all community organizations to join in the observance. Signed this day, February 7th, 2017. Next order of business is visitors. Any visitors, sir?
I have no forms.
Okay. If someone is here this evening that would like to address the council about a non-agenda item, this is the opportunity. If they would come forward to the podium and state their business, their name, and their address. Any visitors that like to address the council? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed. At this time, we'll recess as the Yukon City Council and reconvene as the Yukon Municipal Authority. The first item is 1A, and that's the YMA consent docket. This item is placed on the agenda so the Yukon Municipal Authority, by unanimous consent, can designate those routine items that wish to be approved by one motion. If an item does not meet with the approval of all council members, that item will be heard in regular order. The city manager recommends a motion to approve A, the minutes of the regular meeting of January 17, 2017. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Discussion? Call the roll.
Russell.
Yes.
Yonda.
Yes.
Alberts.
Yes.
McCarran.
Yes.
Smystrela.
Yes.
At this time, we will adjourn as YMA and reconvene as the Yukon City Council. The first item on the agenda is the consent docket. That's item 1. This item is placed on the agenda so the Yukon City Council, by unanimous consent, can designate those routine items they wish to be approved by one motion. If an item does not meet with the approval of all council members, that item will be heard in regular order. The city manager recommends a motion that will approve A, the minutes of the regular meeting of January 17, 2017, B, the payment of material claims in the amount of $1,598,214.66, C, the designation of the items on the attached list from the Technology Department as surplus and authorizing their sale, donation, or trade, D, the interlocal government agreement with the Canadian County Sheriff's Office deputizing the Yukon police officers for a term expiring December 31st, 2017, is approved by the State Attorney General. E, the interlocal governmental cooperation agreement with the Canadian County Sheriff's Office providing use of the county jail for a term of January 3rd, 2017 to June 30th, 2017 at the rate of $40 per day. F, a maintenance agreement with Signal Tech, Inc. for the traffic signal intersection and school zone signs for the term of February 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2017 at a monthly cost of $775. G, accepting Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality permit number SL000009161081 for the construction of 432 linear feet of 80-inch PVC sewer line and appurtenances to to service the 8-inch sewer line extension for the commercial tract at the southwest corner of Northwest 10th Street and Check Hall Road, Canadian County, Oklahoma. And H, setting the date for the next regular council meeting for February the 21st, 2017, 7 p.m. in the council chambers of the Centennial Building, 12 South 5th Street in Yukon, Oklahoma. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion? Call the roll, please.
McCarron.
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
Smystrela.
Yes.
Yonda.
Yes.
Alberts.
Yes. Next item is item 2, and that's the report from boards, commissions, or city officials. Mr. Manager, do you have a report this evening?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I do have a report to you regarding the ambulance service. We have a gentleman here. There's been some questions in regards to the ambulance service. The fire chief had recommended that we go out to bid for ambulance service as he was concerned about the type of service we were getting. And Mr. Jones, would you like to address that and then bring your gentleman forward to tell him where we are on this?
I'm your fire chief, of course, and as we looked at this over the last several years, or what we were doing with IMSA, the response times, our lack of ambulances staged here in town, I felt like, coming from me, that we weren't getting the kind of service that we deserve in the city. So, of course, as we go to bids, Samaritan, of course, was the low bid, but that was not, in my opinion, the only reason to choose them. The fact that they're going to have 2 ambulances staged in this city, dedicated to this city, that they will be embedded here in the city. I know some of these young men who are working. I used to work the streets with them also, and outstanding people. And so with their character, their customer service package that they're wanting to provide, the service they want to provide to us, was a reason why that I recommended them to council. So I really defer to Jason. Are you going to speak tonight? To Jason Likens, the COO with Samaritan. He can answer your questions better than I can, probably, for some of the nuts and bolts part of it.
Thank you, Chief.
Before we get started, I also would like to introduce Randy. You want to come up? As of about 2 weeks ago, Samaritan went through a change that's been kind of in the works for about 3 months now. Dr. Heron is not only our medical director, but he's also our new owner, and that's effective as of essentially last week. So, what questions can I answer?
Go ahead. They have this letter. If you'd go through that just a little bit. Do you have it with you?
Yeah.
Here.
From a standpoint of the progress that we've made so far, we began to essentially file the appropriate applications with the State Department of Health to establish the appropriate licensure for this service area. We established a lease on a building here in Yukon, which I'll provide that to the city manager. It's a 6,000 square foot building. It'll be able to house the ambulances and the crews. It'll also house the communication center that we're putting in there. That lease was signed last Friday. We purchased the ambulances last week. We purchased actually 4. 3 of those will be in direct support of this contract. 1 will be a backup for our entire fleet. We anticipate 2 of those ambulances arriving this Friday in Oklahoma City, where they'll go to get wrapped and get basically prepared to go through their state inspections. Today we ordered about $90,000 in capital equipment. Those are the heart monitors, the ventilators, so forth and so on. We anticipate receiving those over the next week or so. We've been coordinating with ACOG and with the fire chief and the chief of police and their dispatch supervisor to kind of establish that. And what we've established is it's going to be a system where the police dispatcher has a one push button, and it'll connect with our system. We will be essentially using communications on Fire's VHF channel, and then we'll also set up our own additional UHF system. And that's the kind of the installation of the communication systems that you see there. It's our plan to begin testing that approximately around February 20th. Most of those elements should be in place. We are having to install a tower at our lease location to make sure that we have appropriate in-building penetration for the radio system. And we anticipate that that'll occur just in the week following. As far as new employee orientation, we're about 90% complete hiring the folks that will service this contract. The vast majority of them already serve or serve the city of Yukon in one capacity or another, or have in the past. So we're really excited about that. Some of the firefighters know those folks on a first name basis. One of the things that we were trying to establish for this particular contract is a membership subscription program. None of our other entities currently, we don't provide that for any of our other communities, mostly because there's never been interest. But there's clearly interest in the city of Yukon to have that. We've been diligently working on that these past several weeks, and we fully anticipate submitting that to OIG for essentially their opinion on the legality of that, so that we avoid any potential conflicts or anti-kickback issues.
And how will you offer that membership? Will it be available online to apply, or?
Yeah, broadly, yes, ma'am. It's our plan to basically have an application that they can go fill out online at our website. We'll also coordinate sending out a mailer with Mr. Crosby's office. So there will also be a hard application. We also fully intend on working with some of the facilities that are more likely to kind of need that application, like Spanish Cove. We did meet with them earlier today to begin opening dialogue about that. So we'll work directly with the directors of those individual facilities to make sure that they have those applications.
And what about the cost? How will you determine?
The cost, it's difficult to say, because the way that the OIG bases their opinion is on the actuarial soundness of that. So in effect, what they have to establish is that the cost that we're charging is approximate to the out-of-pocket cost that the individual would incur normally. So we're working through that, and as soon as we have that specific number, I will absolutely get it to the council and to the public at large.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Early. Mike?
I just, like I said, I've had several questions too. Apparently through Oklahoma City, and I spoke to Jim about it earlier, and spoke to him about being able to pay for it, not only the subscription, but apparently in Oklahoma City with them, so they're allowed to pay that through their utilities billing or something like that. And are you familiar with that, or given that any thought?
Yes, sir. Actually, subscription services are widely used in the United States. Another mechanism to essentially, as opposed to using a subscription service, is to actually pay for that cost through a water meter fee. We have a similar arrangement with the city of Stroud. They actually sell electricity in Stroud, and they assess that on the electric bill. So that's absolutely an option if that's an option that the council wishes to evaluate.
Oh, I think, we just like to see some information on it. I've had a couple of different questions from folks about, that you took it away, so I can't pay it on my utility bill anymore, because our immediate area is not just Yukon proper. So,
right.
There are a lot of people that live in the community here that will be, servicing.
I can certainly furnish some additional information to the city manager's office in regards to that particular subject and what that might look like. Initially, Mr. Crosby and I kind of had some very, very small conversation about that when we initially first kind of started talking, and I know he was talking to some of the other agencies that put in bids. And at that time, it was, as I recall, decided not to kind of go that route.
Well, I think we need to at least explore it and see what kind of interest there is. If it's not a big interest, obviously, but if there is a pretty good sized interest in people doing that, then
Absolutely.
I'd like to explore that.
Yes, sir. I'll make sure that Mr. Crosby gets that information.
Appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Russell?
Between the two of them, I think both of my questions were already answered.
I just have a couple. As far as any gap in service, there's not any gap in service. We're not missing any coverage.
No, sir. Matter of fact, you're getting more coverage.
Okay.
So, yes, sir. That's correct.
And as far as the applications, the timing of the license, is there a reason why? Is it being delayed or anything? Or are things moving along?
Oh no, sir. No. There's just it's essentially a mound of paperwork that we have to file with the state, and we normally try and file those about 15, 20 days ahead. So, that's just typical. It's just how it works.
Okay. And then the OIG, that's the Office of the Inspector General.
Yes, sir.
So, and you say that you are waiting on them to determine the fee, or whether the fee. Explain what you mean by that. I'm not clear.
So we're being very cautious about, to be quite honest, because of some other recent news, we're being very, very cautious about what we're putting out publicly until we have that opinion. In effect, we're not allowed to give anything of value to a patient because that could be considered an enticement under CMS law. So the Center for Medicaid Services. I'm sorry, sir. And under those rules, what could be considered, like for instance, a normal, customary kind of subscription service like what we're talking about, if it does not have an OIG opinion attached to it, it could be considered an enticement, even if it's technically within the bounds of what their recommendations are. So our approach to this, to make sure that it's a measure twice, cut once kind of a scenario, is we're just being very cautious. We're submitting it. We're getting the opinion prior to doing any, essentially, putting it out to the public what it will cost.
Okay, so for me to use my skills as a lawyer and try to narrow you down and box you in and say, is it lower than or greater than, you're not, because I guess my question would be, would it be a fee that would be similar to what the type of fee that was charged by IMSA?
It'll be similar.
Okay.
Now, I probably will also say, I think it's fair to say, it will be more.
Okay.
And the reason why it will be more is because we're dealing with a much smaller population of people. EMSA has a very large pool of people to which to draw from on that actuarial ruling that we get from the OIG. Whereas what we have to do is we have to just base it on the specific population that we're serving. So for instance, if we feel we will be successful, but we can't take that ruling and then apply that ruling to one of our other jurisdictions. It only applies to this jurisdiction.
Okay. Tell us a little, I know that you were at Spanish Cove. I had an opportunity to talk to a couple of the people that were there and heard your town hall meeting today, and I appreciate very much that you were able to go and talk, and it sounds like you were able to answer a lot of questions. Do you mind sharing with the council how the meeting went, maybe some concerns that were expressed there that maybe were not raised here tonight? Just fill us in on how the meeting went in your opinion.
I think that probably one of the biggest concerns was that essentially the membership program, I think, was really chief among them, and how that is going to work. I also think that some of the concerns were that if they were to be involved in an accident or suddenly fall ill while they were in Oklahoma City shopping or doing other business, that the ambulance would not be covered by the program here, which is true. But that's also true of the IMSA system. So if they have an IMSA membership today and they're in El Reno, that IMSA membership doesn't cover them. So in some respects, I get the sense that they feel like they're losing something. But what I really want to echo is what they're gaining is they're gaining ambulances that are dedicated to this community, that aren't going to leave this community to go service another community. And if, from my perspective, I think that it's probably more important that you have a ready response capable ambulance that can come take care of your loved one in that time of need. Because when somebody's calling 911 for a heart attack, they're not thinking about what it costs. They're thinking about how quick it'll get there. And this was designed with that premise, and then designed with the premise that when that ambulance does get there, that citizen and that patient is going to get the absolute best in customer service and quality of care that's available today. I think that some of the, one particular resident shared that, she felt like money was not really what was at issue. It was just the change that was frightening to people. And I think that's a fair assessment. A lot of people haven't heard about us. But I think that we're going to do an outstanding job for the city. Does that help, sir?
It does.
On a positive note, Mr. Mayor, I think one of the things that the people were glad to hear is that presently we're served by one ambulance out here. If that ambulance is busy or called away to another community, which does happen, we have to get a response out of Oklahoma City. And sometimes that takes a considerable length of time. And we had several testimonies to that effect. And we let them know we have two ambulances right here in the community where we have had one previously. On a positive note, we've talked about if you have a problem here, they will run emergency runs to serve our people. IMSA has a policy, unless it's a critical type heart attack or a certain thing, they run regular speed out of Oklahoma City if they're coming up here, and we talked, they go 35 miles an hour, 25, 50, whatever the road they're on. The majority of their runs, and they determine that by the call, and it may not be the correct call, 911, is that it takes a considerable length of time. And, where they may say, and they've stated publicly, they've done studies, and it really doesn't matter to the survival rate, or it doesn't matter this, or what have you. However, if you're the one that's injured and laying there, it's critical to most people. And I always used to say with them, so that if you fell down and broke your leg, tell them you have chest pains, so they'll get there in a hurry, or whatever happens to you. And until you're involved in something, and which I have been involved in a serious thing, and you call, and wonderful fire department's there and giving service, and you wait 25, 30 minutes for an ambulance to show up, and the person you love is laying there hurt, then it's critical to you at that time. And the person was hurt critical, but because of the nature, they decided they didn't want to run, and we went through a number of problems with it. But anyway, it's and this is something that I think even today when we were talking at our department head meeting, we had several people with similar testimonials that talked about it. I think this is going to be an improved service for us, and I'm excited about it. And if it doesn't, ambulance service, as I've had to run them before in the city and take it over, and it's something that's very difficult to run, and I'm just excited about getting it here. Of course, they serve Tinker Field, and Tinker is really a town in itself, and it has more population than we do. So, I mean, they do serve bigger cities, and not just little cities of Stroud or some of these other areas. So we have checked, and they've had a great reputation, and we're excited about it, and hopefully we can work through these minor things and move forward in a very positive manner.
Questions?
Yeah, I'd like for him to comment on the fact I was reading through the material and everything regarding have a lot of older people, of course, and certainly if they're Medicare, they don't necessarily need to subscribe. Is that correct? Or
Medicaid.
Or Medicaid or Medicare or both?
Yep. Medicaid, sir. Medicaid specifically requires that the assignment is payment in full, and that's contractual.
Okay, so if there were a Medicare person that were involved, then tell me how that works. Well, for instance, I've got Medicare and I've got another plan that goes along with that. Now, is that sufficient for that, or would I have to look at an additional plan?
So, well, I'm assuming that you're talking about Part A and Part B. Is that?
Yeah, I have Part A and B for Medicare, but I also have Blue Cross and Blue Shield.
Okay, I understand.
Okay, as a secondary.
Yes. How essentially how that works is subscription. A lot of people misunderstand really what they're designed to do. The individual patient still is fully accountable for the bill. As soon as the insurance makes a payment is when the membership service program kicks in, and it typically will cover what we would normally consider to be the out-of-pocket expenses, so the copay and the deductible. That's typically how they're arranged, and that's typically what the OIG looks for, is that the amount that you contribute or that you pay for that membership service program approximates to what that out-of-pocket cost would be. So does that explain?
So in essence, what
question?
you do is you bill Medicare and then you bill my secondary as well. Correct. And then if there's any out-of-pocket that there would be none if I had the subscription, but if I didn't have the prescription, then I might be accountable for some additional dollars. Is that what you're saying?
Correct, and that does depend somewhat on the write-offs required by the two individual insurance programs, because as you're aware, you have to make contracts with some of these providers. Some of them actually require them, and some of them don't. Blue Cross Blue Shield most certainly does. Medicare most certainly does. And so there's contractual write-offs associated with each one of those as well. And sometimes that can essentially eliminate the bill to zero, depending on the kind of coverage that you have. But again, it depends somewhat on the individual specific circumstances. But the whole point of the membership program is to prevent out-of-pocket expenses to the citizen.
Okay, so that amount of money, whatever it might happen to be, then would cover any additional out-of-pocket then if I chose that.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Ladies?
No.
While I am always very interested about Spanish Cove because my parents live there, I'm also concerned about the rest of the community. So the things that we've talked about, it's just not, we're not talking about Spanish Cove. That was just a place that you went to visit. What we're talking about applies to the entire community and service area. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And sir, we are starting to reach out to the other nursing home facilities and some of the other facilities of that nature in the community. I apologize, I'm getting over a little bit of a cold, so I'm a little scratchy throat here. It's also our plan to have essentially an open house in the coming weeks as we get our new facility up and running, which we anticipate to be sometime after the 15th. Our guess is that we'll have a couple of 2 or 3 of those at different times of the day so that we can invite the community to come see their new ambulance station, see their new ambulance, meet their new medics, et cetera. So
Okay.
that'll be an opportunity for us to also share that information and maybe answer some of those very specific questions and specific cases that people may have.
Okay. And then as far as the dissemination of information, do you all have a Facebook page?
Several.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because I mean, there's the Yukon Review, and then I'm hoping that maybe there'd be a press release for the Yukon Review, a press release then for maybe for the Daily Oklahoman as well, and then social media seems to be a really good way to communicate too. So to make sure that all of the citizens know about, especially about the subscription, that I'm like you, that seems to be the issue that has been most interesting, that people have been most interested in. So as I understand it, as far as that's concerned, once you're up and running as far as the subscription, you're going to make a mailer to the entire community?
As necessary, yes.
I don't understand what that means.
Well, I guess the answer should be yes.
I agree
If that's
with
what you're asking me for, then that's the.
I'm not trying to be clever. I just want to make sure. Even before the situation with Spanish Cove, I was stopped at the post office a couple of weeks ago, and the same series of questions were asked of me. So it's important to the council, I think, and to those people that are interested to make sure that that information goes out to everybody. Now, it's their responsibility to look at it. I mean, if they see it as junk mail or whatever, but hopefully to go out in a couple of different methods in the newspapers, on social media. I'm glad to announce I spoke with Jim today that we're going to start posting our agenda on our Facebook. Is that right? The city council agenda?
Correct.
So we'll start doing that. So maybe if you could provide the information to the city, can we share that on our Facebook?
Yes.
Okay. So there are several different ways, but it's amazing with as many opportunities that there are to communicate, how little information is received sometimes. So I guess what I'm asking is to make sure that it goes out as many ways as possible. And I understand that's expensive and it's time consuming, but to bring the people up to speed and address their concerns, especially about the subscription.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Kasem, you asked a question, and I just want to go back there just for a moment, if that's okay.
Please.
One of the citizens of Spanish Cove asked how we were giving information out, and we are putting out some information on social media. Well, she said, well, I don't do that, and maybe you ought to think about using the newspaper and some other things. So we did take that lesson away from that conversation today. That for the most part, we're a pretty young organization in terms of our age. And so we have a tendency to gravitate towards those things that we use. So we did take note of that, and we will make sure that goes out as broadly as possible, including a mailer to the entire community. And I'll work with Mr. Crosby on that particular issue.
Okay. Anything else? Other people? Just in case, are there any citizens here that have a question this evening? Yes, sir. Would you come to the podium, announce your name, your address, and then your question?
My name is James Choate, 403 Oak Creek. My question is not for you. My question is for the council members. Is there a reason why this was not put up for a vote of the citizens, since it does impact us, not only our well-being, but financially?
Mr. City Attorney, are we allowed to respond to that? How do we?
Well,
I mean, can we have a conversation?
sure.
Okay.
Me. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Crosby, you want to address that?
This is throughout Oklahoma, in fact, these are contractual, just like a normal contract for a road or any kind of service. This is a contract that is bid and brought forward before the council. It is advertised. It's been on the advertisement on our agenda when it was going to be discussed. We discussed it several times. It was discussed in the study session, noted in the paper, and we do not put everything we go. A lot of things we do affect citizens, everything. In fact, all road contracts, sewer contracts, everything will affect what citizens are in an area, and they're never put out to a vote of the people. These are items that are day-to-day business of the city, and it's addressed by the city council, and that's the reason.
Okay, I understand what you're saying about roads and stuff like that, but when it comes to that, I don't have an out-of-pocket deductible that I have to meet on the roads.
I don't
So
think,
that doesn't have a direct impact on my financial status or anybody on a limited income. We're just arbitrarily picking an ambulance service, save $8,000 a year on the city side. I guess I'm asking why.
so what's your concern,
My
sir?
first thing
do
I
you
even
think?
knew that the city was going to change the service was I saw an article in the paper where you'd already approved
Okay.
going this route.
So it was on the agenda, it was on a study session, and then onto an agenda item, and that's what we do to post it, to put the community on notice. I've talked to the city manager, and we're going to try to use Facebook. The information went out. As far as it being arbitrary in nature, the chief was here. They spent an extensive amount of time. They came, presented at the city council. You can go back and the IMSA gentleman was here, and he presented at the city council. So we did hear the presentation of both parties. My reason for voting for it was that I was concerned that the IMSA response time was not as quick as their response time promises to be. Also, the fact that they're going to have 2 ambulances in the city was what, in my opinion, swayed me. That seemed to be the focus of the presentation. We were also under the impression, and again, it was heard tonight, that the costs are going to be similar to what IMSA charged. So, my personal opinion was swayed by the fact that the response time would be better for the population. So that's why I voted for it. As far as the community to vote for it, I hate to defer to our city attorney. I don't even think this is something that you could.
I don't think it's appropriate for
Yeah.
a public vote.
It's not.
This
Yeah.
is a service the city provides. City doesn't have
Yeah,
to
so-
provide it. It's a service that this city has decided it's important and they want to provide to the citizens, and it's up to the elected officials to make the best choice they can make.
And it's been a historical. Former Mayor Smith is sitting here. When Ken was on the council, we talked about at one time trying to have our own ambulance service, and doing that, it wasn't going to be cost effective. This conversation has been going on for a long time.
We subsidize this service quite heavily.
Right. So I apologize for the change, and I think change is always uncomfortable, and I certainly hope that you're satisfied with the service. I hope that you draw some comfort from the fact that there'll be 2 ambulances here in the community rather than 1. I hope that comfort will outweigh the discomfort that's caused by you, sir, and I apologize. But because of this item, I today said, look, let's get it on Facebook. So friend us on Facebook. Friend us on Facebook, and you'll see the agenda. And I hope that people come and ask and talk because of social media and some conversations. Ultimately, there was a conversation today that took place out at Spanish Cove. So we are concerned, and I appreciate you very much for coming here and expressing your opinion. We may not always agree, but I certainly want you to understand that we'll take it into consideration because of your concerns. That's why he's here tonight, why he's been to Spanish Cove today. So it certainly didn't fall on deaf ears. And I thank you. I apologize, but please, the next time if you see an agenda item, our phone numbers are in the paper, our emails. I'm happy to respond and work, and I'm hoping that this worked out well with the town hall meeting and things, that more citizens will get involved and make statements about things. It's good to know ahead of time. It's funny, some nights we'll have an agenda item where we have a polyurethane cart and a $5 million bond. I'm a divorce lawyer. I don't know a lot about green trash carts and which one is the best one. We rely on what the staff tells us, and then based upon what the staff tells us, same with the bonds. We're about to vote on some bonds. I went up and down those bonds people when they were here in the meeting the other night. Make sure that I don't know a lot. Make sure that we understand that the community is well educated. So we do use our due diligence.
All right.
I think everybody does here, sir.
All right. Thank you.
I appreciate it very much. Anyone else? Mr. Smith. Former Mayor, Mr. Smith.
I'm Ken Smith. I live at 113 Snowmass Drive. And I am all about improving our emergency response time. And I hope that Samaritan is actually going to come through and do what they say. But I will mention just 3 things that we heard from Samaritan's people tonight. One is the subscription portion. I know, Mayor Albert, you mentioned just now that it was going to be comparable to EMSA, but what I heard, and I'll quote, cost will be more. Another thing that concerned me was that their communication system at this point in time is not in place. They're using our fire department as their communication system. I'm not sure how long that's going to take. I'm sure that it's going to come up online at some point, but is not in place at this time. The other thing is, and probably my most concerning, you know, they haven't got their employees in place to service this ambulance service yet. And one of the reasons that they don't is because they're researching, and I quote, kickbacks, because some new hires worked for Yukon previously. So I think these are, that's not my words, that's their words. So I think I'd like some clarification. I assume I'm not the only citizen in town that would like some clarification on these 3 items. Thank you.
Okay. You ready? Yes, sir. All right, so I've written them down. Do you have them memorized? I think the first one was that Mr. Smith had brought up the idea that costs will be comparable, but he quoted you by saying that they would be more.
And I feel like they probably will be in terms of that membership service
Okay.
agreement.
But not the call
No,
service.
sir. No, sir. Our ambulance prices are established under contract, which I believe is already public record. So that actually I think is very comparable. But in terms of the membership service program, it will likely be more.
Okay. And the subscription service, it's a voluntary service?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if they don't subscribe, tell me what a subscribing person gets that a non-subscribing person doesn't get.
A subscribing person would get, after the insurance pays essentially the contractual portion that they agree to pay, they would get their out-of-pocket expenses essentially discharged.
Okay, which is the deductible?
Copay and deductible.
Copay and deductible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have a follow-up, Mr. Smith? I think it
goes back to my original question.
I don't mean,
Subscription
can
costs.
come up to the mic. Sorry, I don't mean to.
I'm sorry. It goes back to the original question, the subscription costs, the costs that concern the individual, the out-of-pocket money, he's not telling us that it's going to be comparable to EMSA's. He's telling us it's going to cost more.
Okay.
I believe that's what I hear.
And I think that what he said is that he's prohibited from expanding on that because of the submission that you've made. Is that right?
That's correct, the OIG opinion.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Once you're able to disclose that information, will you come to the next meeting and share that with you, and can we put that on the agenda?
No problem.
And if there's a situation that is, you know, what Mr. Smith and I think is comparable might not be comparable in your mind. So I think that what we're concerned about is making sure that it's comparable for the people that are paying it. Okay?
I understand.
I had a case the other day that the lady said it was comparable and it was 40% different. I didn't think that was comparable. So will you come back and report to us the next meeting after you know that number?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The next thing was communication system is not in place.
So currently, we're not using the fire department system. We're not currently in operation. Our communication system will be fully operational.
Make sure you're talking to the mic.
I'm sorry. Our communication system will be fully operational by the time that we start operation. When I referred to the VHF channel, that's for interoperability, so we can communicate with them. If they arrive on scene and they find something different than what was dispatched, they're able to communicate that to the ambulance, so the paramedics can essentially switch gears in their mind about what they're getting ready to take care of. So we will have a fully fleshed out comm system. And the third question?
Well, this is the most important one to Mr. Smith and certainly is to me as well. He says that he heard you say that the employees were not in place because there was kickbacks,
So,
researching kickbacks.
So no, that's absolutely not the case. We are being very, very deliberate about who we hire for this contract. Very deliberate. We're looking for very specific paramedics with a very specific amount of experience, and chief among them is that their core belief is taking care of the customer. A lot of paramedics, and some of you may have experienced them, are a little rough around the edges. They take good care of people, but they don't really have very good bedside manner. And we believe that you have to have both to be successful, especially over the long term. So the fact that we're about 90% ready to roll with this is because we've elected not to hire. Matter of fact, we've done close to 100 interviews.
You got to, sir, you got to stay with the mic because it's going out to the TV.
I'm
Mr. Smith
sorry.
can hear you, I promise.
We've done close to 100 interviews for this particular contract, and we're hiring about 22 people. So just to give you an idea of really the amount of effort that we're going into to make sure that we get the absolute right people to take care of you and your family.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with kickbacks.
Okay. Do you feel like you covered your question?
Well, what was said earlier.
Okay.
We can look back.
Well, that's what I was about. I'm about to ask him.
I believe the.
All right. So trust me, this ends up on YouTube, and we can transcribe it and play it in slow motion. So what I'm concerned about is, and I didn't hear it, Ken. So thank you for bringing that up. Mr. Smith is certain that he heard you use the term kickback.
I believe I did earlier when I was discussing, and it was out of the abundance of caution that we're stepping through and not providing a bunch of information about the subscription program is to make sure that we are not engaging in an illegal kickback. A subscription service, if it is not meet the needs and have the appropriate opinion of the OIG, can be considered an anti-kickback violation.
Okay, so that's a minute ago you were talking about the subscriptions, and that's why you're not able to disclose the amount, is because that could be considered some sort of a kickback.
Correct, because it can be considered an enticement to use ambulance service.
So if they hear the word kickback, if they continue through, you're telling us that kickback has nothing to do with the employees or any person that you've spoken to, or
I certainly hope so, Mayor, and if I said that certainly had nothing to do with our hiring practices.
So, but the kickback is an abundance of caution regarding the subscription portion of the conversation that we were having.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Smith, are you good?
I appreciate that.
Okay. Any other questions? Great questions. And I appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Are there any other people that are here tonight to ask? I mean, it works amazing when the people come and ask questions. Anyone else? Mr. McCarron?
I just, we're discussing that. This really goes to your second page that you gave us right here. Program was designed to comply with anti-kickback statutes. And
Correct.
that's where it goes to the subscription that's in regard to the subscription program. Is that correct?
Okay.
So it's right at the very top of the second page, and maybe that's where it came up. I don't know, but this defines it as related to the subscription program.
Yeah, it says program must be designed to comply with the anti-kickback statutes.
Right.
So, okay. All right, anything else, Mr. McCarron?
No, sir.
Ma'am? I have one question. Yes, ma'am. If you'll stand up, give us your name, your address.
Heather Bratcher, 500 Oak Creek Drive.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is the first I've heard it, but just in hearing the conversation, when you say subscription, does that cover one person, or is each individual member of the family supposed to have a subscription?
Would you allow him to?
It's a very good question. Typically, they're designed to cover a household, and that's how we're designing ours.
So that's what's been submitted?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. If you come forward, state your name and your address, please.
Christy Simmons, 620 Poplar. My question is, I happen to have a mom who lives in Yukon, but on the other side of I-40, which is Oklahoma City Utilities, and we pay for that service with Oklahoma City. My dad being ill about 18 months ago, we had to have several ambulance services. So does the subscription cover it each time, or the out-of-pocket each time, or is it just once?
That too is a very good question. It's actually designed for the period of the way that we are structuring this program is that it parallels the contract. So when you enroll in the subscription program, it'll cover you for that year.
You get, she
It'll
can
cover-
hear you, I
it'll-
promise.
I'm sorry. I'm
Talk
sorry,
to the
sir.
mic.
It'll cover you for that year.
Okay. Did that answer your question,
So-
ma'am? And you know that your father, the person on the south side of the interstate lives in Oklahoma City limits. It's a Yukon mailing address. Where I've always been told, and Mr. Crosby, can you verify, wherever you pay your utilities, that's the city that you live in.
Correct. And so that, if they have a contract there with IMSA, that contract will remain with IMSA, and IMSA will be the one that'll answer the call.
So Yukon zip code and school district go to
Unless they
Surrey.
need us. Now, that's what I tell, if we have 2 ambulances here and they're busy and we got a call here by rule, and in fact, Mr. Williams addressed that when he was here with IMSA, they will back you up in case necessary, and we will back IMSA up in case they need us here.
There's an
Okay.
is it an interlocal agreement, is that, or what is it called? There's an agreement between
It's
you-
similar to an interlocal government agreement, but it's the rules and stuff that govern ambulance service.
Yeah, correct. It's actually part of the state statute now. If you're contiguous with another ambulance agency, you don't have to actually have a physical agreement in place with them. It's essentially citationized in statute. So.
It's mandatory that they do that.
Okay, but that's causing me to think of it. So here we go off into these, once in a million type of scenarios. So say that your 2 ambulances are gone, working in wherever, and IMSA comes in and provides the service. Will the service fee paid to Samaritan, I'm sorry. I didn't, forgive me.
We thought about that name. That's actually a pretty good
Really?
name there. Yeah.
Okay. Will the fee to you, your company, cover that service?
The
You understand my question?
Yes, sir, I do. The answer is yes.
Okay, and I don't mean to be the lawyer, but you didn't seem very sure of that.
Well, to be honest, I'm kind of putting our organization on its reputation. The answer is yes.
Okay. All right.
If a citizen of Yukon has to use an IMSA ambulance because we're not able to service it, we'll pay the bill. It is on record. I just said it.
Okay. And I mean, we're going to, but I mean, I assume that we're going to shore this. This is an agreement that you're about to put together. That, I mean, that language will be included in this subscription portion. Is that right?
It wouldn't be in the subscription portion because the subscription is specifically dealing with the individual. But we've had substantial conversations. It is not our intent to ever use mutual aid for any of our operations.
I understand that, but I mean, I make my living on the exception and not the rule, and I'm not trying to be smart with you. So, but I mean, that's something, with all due respect, it's on the record, but I think that that's important to make sure because that can happen from time to time if there's some sort of a catastrophic event or something like that. So I'd like to make sure that we have something. I'm not, sir, I don't doubt your word that you may be gone and the good doctor, is that right? He may sell the company for
Yeah, he's
billion.
probably panicking right
Yeah.
now, so I can't speak.
But I'd just like to shore that up in writing.
I think the best way to do that, and maybe the city attorney will weigh in on this, but maybe we need to make a small amendment to the contract and place
Certainly
it in
do
the
that.
contract.
Okay.
That way it's contractualized. Now I will say that that's barring natural catastrophe, obviously. If a tornado wipes out part of Oklahoma City and part of Yukon, everybody's going to be responding everywhere.
Sure.
So, but if it's simply a fact that both ambulances are occupied and we're required to call mutual aid because we're not going to be able to service that citizen, then I think it's fair for us to pay that bill.
Okay. Seems like it. Okay. Any other great questions, ladies? All right, gentlemen, they've kind of showed you up. Anyone else have a good question? You need a drink? I've got about another 30 minutes.
I'm ready, sir. Let's
Okay.
go.
Any other questions? Questions? Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time and your information.
Thank you, sir.
All right, at this time, item number 3 has been pulled. We'll proceed next to item 4. That's consider approving the conditional use permit to Route 66 Virtual Arcade to allow a virtual arcade in C3 Restricted Commercial District located at 10 West Main, 125, I'm sorry, 10 West Main, Suite 125 is recommended by the Planning Commission. Or Main Street. Let me read that again. Located at 10 West Main Street, 125, is that what it is?
It's 10 West Main, Suite 125.
But
Sweet.
that's not Suite, it's, okay. 10 West Main Street, Suite 125 is recommended by the Planning Commission. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Yonda,
Yes.
McCarron,
Yes.
Smystrela,
Yes.
Alberts,
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
Item 5 is consider approving ordinance number 1342, an ordinance diminishing the corporate limits of the city of Yukon and designating an area south of Highway 66 and west of Frisco Road abutting the city of Oklahoma City in the north half of Section 24, Township 12 North, Range 6 West, Indian Meridian, Canadian County, Oklahoma, for such diminution, and determining that the area of such diminution be considered to be within the corporate limits of the city of Yukon, providing an effective date and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing that if any part of the portions thereof are invalid or ineffective, the remaining portions shall not be affected, and declaring an emergency. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Alberts.
Yes.
Smystrela,
Yes.
McCarron,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Yonda.
Yes.
Next item is 5A, and that's consider approving the emergency clause of ordinance number 1342. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion? Call the roll.
McCarron,
Yes.
Alberts,
Yes.
Yonda,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Smystrela,
Yes.
Next item is 6, and that's consider approving an engineering architectural contract with Triad Design Group for the purpose of providing preliminary plats, final plats, and specification estimates and construction for the construction of the animal control shelter, maintenance building, and storage building within the city of Yukon. Total fees not to exceed $186,000.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion? Call the roll.
John,
Yes, sir.
I would like to, have we determined the property that we're going to use for this officially, Jim?
Yes, sir. The two buildings that we're talking about, the storage building and the maintenance building, which will handle our sign shop, and the street department, they will be constructed where the, I guess, where the old cotton mill used to be, in that area. We're clearing out the dirt, those piles of dirt and that junk that's in there right now, and cleaning that area up. They'll be located there. And those buildings that were previously the street department and the other building down there, they'll be removed, and we'll be moving the animal control shelter to the east into that public works area down off 5th Street.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I'd go down and take a look at that. Thank you.
Other questions? Questions, ladies?
No,
Crosby?
if Mr. McGann, if you give me a call, I'd be glad to go down and show you the plans and the layout where they'll set.
Thank you, sir.
Comments, questions? Call the roll, please.
Russell,
Yes.
Yonda,
Yes.
McCarron,
Yes.
Smystrela,
Yes.
Alberts.
Yes. Next item is 7, that's consider approving an expenditure of funds in amount not to exceed $34,533.50 for the drainage repairs at the northeast and southwest corners of Highway 66 and Cornwell Drive to be repaired by Brewer Construction, Oklahoma, under the terms of the 2017 concrete and asphalt paving drainage water sewer project contract as recommended by the Public Works Director. Do I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Yonda,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Alberts.
Yes.
Smystrela,
Yes.
McCarron,
Yes.
Next item is 8, that's consider approving the bid of specifications and authorizing the purchase agent to advise, to advertise, to receive bids for the purchase of 50 new trail lights for City Park and Freedom Trail. Do I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion? Call the roll.
Smystrela,
Yes.
McCarron,
Yes.
Alberts,
Yes.
Yonda,
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
Next item is 9. That's consider approving the bid specification and authorizing the purchase agent to advertise to receive proposals for the July 3rd and 4th fireworks show. Do I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Discussion? Call the roll.
Alberts,
Yes.
Yonda,
Yes.
Smystrela,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
McCarron.
Yes.
New business, sir?
Not tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Council discussion. Councilwoman Yonda.
Well, I want to thank Samaritan for being here to answer a lot of questions that the citizens of Yukon have had, and I encourage all the citizens, if you have additional questions, to contact City Hall or one of the city council members. And then, since I was ill at the last meeting and unable to be here, I'd like to welcome Gary Miller as
Thank
our
you very
city
much.
attorney. Thank you.
Councilwoman Smystrela.
I have nothing tonight.
Councilman Russell.
Well, I would like to thank Pastor Tim Bear for his invocation tonight, and I also would like to thank Samaritan Emergency Medical Services for being here to answer a lot of the extensive questions which people wanted to know. That's all.
Likewise, I would like to thank Samaritan and staff. Pardon me? Mike, I want to talk first. Mike, you have something to say?
No.
I'm ready to go, Mike. I'm hungry. All right, Mike, let's hear it.
I don't have anything this evening, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, then let's try this again. I also would like to thank Samaritan and staff for working through a critical issue for the community, how we are going to take care of our citizens, transport them, provide for them, assure their quality ambulance service, and also at a reasonable price. And I appreciate Mayor Smith being here and asking questions, the other people who have left now being here and asking questions. I think that is makes government better. I mean, the politicians aren't what make us, it's the people. So, and if the people will participate, it will only make us stronger. And I appreciate the good exchange that goes on from time to time on Facebook and different forms of social media. But when the rubber meets the road, it goes on right here. And if people will come here and work with us, we will do our best. There's no one here tonight that's sitting behind this bench that doesn't want to do a good job. I mean, we're here because we love our community. I think everyone here is on at least a second term. So they were crazy enough to do it at least a second time. So we are here to serve the public. We appreciate when people come and share and talk and banter and give their ideas. Like I told the one gentleman, we may not always agree, but I think that it makes us more effective in what we do. And I really appreciate that, and encourage people in the future to come and share with us. And Mr. Crosby and staff, I appreciate what you've done to help to deal with this issue with Samaritan. And I'm also happy that we are now going to put our agenda on Facebook, and whatever else we can do to make to do our due diligence to make sure that people understand what items are going to come before the council. So, and the Yukon Review's here, and they do a great job. So we hope that you'll continue to share the great things that are about to happen, as well as the things that aren't happening. So that are happening.
Yes.
Now wait a minute.
Okay.
Go ahead. You've changed your mind?
Well, you were listing all the things that we do, and I'd like for everybody to not forget Cox either, that our agenda and things always appear on Channel 20 for those people that have Cox services as well. So the gentleman that was, I don't know if he had Cox television or not, but I think, all of that appears for folks as well, so.
So maybe if our local paper could share of all, I mean, we're going to be on Facebook, we're on Cox, we're on YouTube, Okay, and then on YouTube, that's where they all end up being posted on YouTube. Yeah, they're in the archive. Yeah, they're all there too. There, Gene, something you didn't know. Make sure that's on TV. All right.
That's a first.
That's a first. Gene, 16 years, and that's the first time we've one-upped you. Congratulations. Anything else, gentlemen, ladies? With no other business before the council, we stand adjourned.